Well, shout out to a friend of the program, Jay Eddy, for putting together some special graphics for us and a new intro. Today we do have a special show on this. It's Thursday, but it's Thursday night. So we are now the new intro and lead in to Thursday Night Football. And to do that, I mean, we had to go big. It's go big or go home. And speaking of big, my usual co-host, none other than internet personality and Weber Cup participant, Stu Williams.
Hey, Chris, man, you were that hard up for a shirt. You had to keep wearing that one.
It just brought good memories for me. I was feeling good. It was not the one I wore when you beat me. So,
all right, okay.
Yeah, I gave that one's already been auctioned off to charity, and evidently there's a dog walking by. So, hey, it's what happens at 7 o'clock at night. Or 6 o'clock, yeah. So anyway, there's a lot of announcements this week. Not as much bowling, and we've beat the Weber Cup to death. So we'll move on. And I can't think of anybody we can go with that got bigger news than what's happened this week. So we're bringing on the king of the ball. This guy, he's been a tour rep. He's been a top amateur player. He has Eagles and World Team Challenge Championships, a Team USA member. He's been the head of marketing for a ball manufacturer. He was a big part of ball development for them. He's been the brand manager of that manufacturer, director of youth for BPA, director of youth development for IBC, the managing director for that, and now finally the executive director, the grand poobah of the USBC, Chad Murphy.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
I'm not to correct you, but I trade some of that for the eagle that you said I had.
Okay.
So no Eagles.
Okay. All right. Well, and those chances have gone down considerably with your current title.
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah. Considerably by the rules and also the skill.
Well,
you control them. You can have as many as you want.
Oh, brother, have you seen my scores at the Open lately?
It doesn't matter. You can give yourself one for it. Best score by an executive director in the field, Eagle.
Well, I'm doing that every year. It's just not very big.
Well, I haven't been in a place to judge here the last year or two, so yeah.
I have to be honest. We've never had quite so many text messages of questions that you should ask.
Oh, I'll bet I can imagine.
So, yeah. I mean, it's. What I think we're going to try and do, right? Because I want to try and keep this somewhat organized. We're going to start off with PWBA. We're going to go a little bit over that and move into PBA, and then we'll tackle whatever we're calling the World Team Challenge now.
Okay. The Team Championship Series, and I would tell you, ask whatever you like, because I mean, this is the thing. I'm playing without a net here a little bit, so feel free to fire away, but know that some of it comes back in some cases.
We're fine. You don't need to really worry too much about me and Chris. It tends to be the thing on the right, which is the comment section that you might.
Right.
That usually is where you're going to be like dodging it.
No worries.
Trey is coming in to start with. Is this going to be a 1 hour show or a 4 hour show? So,
yeah, it's a good one.
Quickly, because I like Mandy, she says, can we ask Chad for a USBC women's update, USBC women's championship update? So
yeah, easy one. We're working on a possible new location. We should have something. Reno City Council is looking at it. There's a couple other places. If that doesn't pan out, could still be in Chicago, but working on it. Everything else is as planned, but should be back in a few weeks on that one.
Sounds good.
Right. Okay. So we're getting a couple of the questions that are like books. Let's start off. We've got the PWBA back. We've got 20 events. Why don't you just quickly talk a little bit about that while I try and find the nice graphic that Jason Thomas sent me?
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty easy. We're expanding from 14 to 20 events. Prize funds are going up from about 900,000 to 1.3 million. We lose 2 majors, which is a downside. We're 86 in the TV for now. Everything goes to Bowl TV. but really a positive if you think about it. We go from basically running a tour for 13 weeks in the summer to expanding into both January and call it October into a little bit of November. But really, some feedback from the players led us to this. We had three things that we were really, struggling with. One of them is some revenue challenges. One of them, some operational challenges. And then I would tell you player challenges were part of it too. And so in listening to the players, this was kind of preferred, if you will. This is not a new concept. I haven't been talking about it publicly, but I have been talking about it at PWBA town halls for the last few years. The ladies want to make more money and they want to bowl more. That was pretty much, what was coming out of those meetings. And so this goes back probably 3 years. We lose the Players Championships and the Tour Championship. That one's pretty easy. Players Championship, we've been throwing more money at it, but we haven't gotten more players. The entry counts for that has been really low. And so it really hasn't been supported by the players, even though they're great events and they look great when we crown a champion. And then the Tour Championships, which, quite honestly, that was, my baby. Top 16 from the points come to the end of the year. Player of the year should come, close to being decided on that show, similar to NASCAR and PBA playoffs and some of those other things. But the players really didn't like it. They didn't like the format. And every year it was kind of a, discussion point about, why we're seating people on the shows and, why isn't a full field? How do you get a major, for such a small event? And so we listened to them. And this is schedule is reflective of really what the players were looking for. But it's not a 6-month thing or an 8-month thing. This has been going on for a while, these conversations for a few years. The other thing that I would tell you is this has got some COVID in it. Those classic series events, which are new, came out of our conversations about how to run a bubble event if we had to. And so there's 3 of them here. If COVID is still in our world and it's still a problem, we'll prove that we can run a bubble event in January, and that whole segment will look like that. And
just quickly on talking about bubble events, I think that if me and Chris had any advice for the ladies, if they were going to go into a bubble, take snacks, lots of snacks.
Yeah. Well, for somebody that's been in quarantine for quite a while, I'm with you.
We had some interesting food choices in England for our quarantine situation.
Oh, I can't imagine. But, that's not I think this is one of the positive things that will actually come from COVID that'll stay. I think this will be a feature of our tour for quite a while, assuming that the ladies, they like it. To get 4 titles, 3 nationals and a regional in an 8-day period, but still maintain, some pretty significant amount of bowling and number of games. We'll try it out and see, but this is really something we'd like to do for a 3-year run and see where we're at. That was the quick and dirty.
Yeah. Early on, you said the price went from 900,000 to 1.3.
Yeah.
Where does that money? How did you grow it?
Essentially, by not doing the TV, that's a huge expense. A lot of folks that think that we're being paid and taking a bunch of money for that, we're not. We pay for all the TV production that comes with it. And so, if you figure roughly, 600,000 in savings there, put a portion of it back. The other 2 majors, the dollars from those events come back. And so really it's a net 4, but we're also saving a few bucks in total by removing the TV.
Do you think that
there's also I'm sorry, Stu. There's also some entry money there too. I mean, we guarantee 32 spots. And so if you figure a $60,000 prize fund, roughly 24, 25 in entry fees, you got 35 in subsidy money every week.
So what I was going to say was, in relation to the Tour Championships, was there a big was it more of an issue with the players of it being a major, or in your opinion that it was just a tournament at all? Because we have a lot of pushback with my co-host about the playoffs counting as a PBA title also.
Yeah.
So, I can't imagine the aneurysm he would grow if it counted as a major.
Yeah, I would tell you it was both. I mean, I think a lot of them, it was really format related initially. It was like, well, why is somebody being seated onto the show? And I can make some pretty good examples, NASCAR being one, the golf tour championship being another, where they actually get strokes. How'd you like to play Dustin Johnson and you're down 10 starting out the week? But Chris and I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but we texted after the PBA playoffs that first time because I wondered, what you were thinking. But at the end of the day, it's not worth arguing, with folks. We're just trying to find a place for this tour to be successful and be better and do better. And so to continue to have a debate over, whether this is a major or whether they like the format and why are we, leaving players out, just not worth the heartache. Even though, again, and I take the blame for it. It was my baby. It just didn't work. And so, if it's not working, cut it off, start over. Let's roll with something else.
In relation to talking to the players, do you take into consideration like are the votes weighted, so to speak, in relation, because you have quite a unique situation where there are really probably about 30 players who play all of the events, and then there's probably about another 50 players, eyeballing it, who play 2/3 of the events maybe. So is it just basically the PWBA membership that you were asking?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the ones who will talk to us are the ones that we, are listening to. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people will step up and say, "Hey, Chad, you're wrong on this," right? And so when you think about the folks that are willing to do that, it's worth listening to. But the players, the tour championship, that was kind of there aren't any votes here. We don't necessarily, we did put out a survey. The players also put out a survey at one point in time, but this is just, listen to the trees shake and listening to what folks say. And then, when they really are some people call it complaining. I think it's constructive. And I think that's the difference. But if you're willing to listen to somebody that's willing to, debate it on its merits. I remember the first person I had a conversation with, this really strong lady, Hall of Famer, and she gave me the business. And I had just tried to explain to her, hey, we're going to try this for a little while and see if it works. But I always say I got 100 ideas. 3 of them are any good. And some of them are bad. And if we'll just not spend too much time on the bad ones, I still think it's a good idea. But at the same time, if it doesn't, harness on to something, the great thing about working with Frank DeSocio is he's willing to try just about anything. And he certainly liked this piece of business, but this year was the PWBA at a crossroads, right? I mean, this was an opportunity because we sat out last year, were we really going to wait all the way till April to figure out whether we could run a bubble event and do some of these other things? And so we just moved some money around, try to make it go. Now, I hope that makes sense. It's not going to work for everybody. We're going to lose some folks for sure. We got some collegiate coaches in there. They're going to be in season in January and February. We got some folks that work for a living. The original tour, when we rolled it out, it didn't have any TV, but all the events were on the weekend so everybody could work. We had a big group coming from overseas that we didn't plan on. That will be harder with this. We assume that they'll still come over in the summer. I'm trying to be efficient, but you kind of get what I'm getting at there. But the simple answer to that one, Stu, it was both. People didn't like that it was a major, and they didn't like that we were seeing people on the TV.
No, the only reason why I brought that up is because when only 16 players make it, and you have 50 members, there are probably 25 of those members who are struggling to have a chance to it. So if the thing about a democracy that sucks is everybody gets a vote. Well, right. That's very much the case with things like that. I mean, people always end up voting for their own self-interest. So that's why I was fascinated as to what the process was. Because looking at it from the outside, I would guess in the perfect world, you would play the way the season is right now, and you would have the Tour Championships as your showcase on TV.
Well, as a breaking news on Beef and Barnzy, what we've done here doesn't prevent us from rolling out a top 16 at the end of the season next year that's televised. And so, that's the other thing that, with giving the players what we think is what they want, there's also opportunity, at the end of that, if, our revenue challenges improve and some of those other things, doesn't mean we couldn't do that at the end of the season next year. And so there's just a lot of opportunity within this, but we'll see how it goes. The other thing that people don't really remember, and this is PWBA was kind of born out of failure, right? The model that we used to build it and really roll it out was only, somewhere between 32 and 48 players showing up. And we got to the first event and it was 100. And we were like, oh, okay, well, just put, let's roll 5 out on a pair there and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, when you think about it that way, it really became something cool that really wasn't as we had it planned. And then we took all that extra money and said, okay, let's roll out some TV. But that was really from all those additional entries that we were able to do some of that. So it sounds like we're, testing all this stuff out, but really it's a matter of listening to everybody involved and then, trying to make the best decision we can. And our staff, Tennille gets a lot of it. JT gets a lot of it. A lot of this information just comes anecdotally from who's ever willing to talk to us.
Okay.
You spoke about TV, and now it's going to be live streamed. And so there's a question here, and I know it's been answered on your show, but I'll give you a chance to here. Why not use another streaming platform in conjunction with Bowl.com where more people could tune in, either pay-per-view or free? Why not Flow Bowling, for example?
Yeah, great question, Bob. When Flow cut the deal with the PBA, we did work with Flow and tried to find an arrangement for both parties. And we, I watch it religiously when the guys are bowling. It's wonderful. Lucas Wiseman is doing a fantabulous job. And I've told him so specifically and personally. I think it's wonderful coverage. And maybe that's something that we can do down the road. We just couldn't figure out a financial model that worked for both parties. You'll remember it wasn't that long ago on Bowl TV. We were just covering all the costs of that production, and it was free. And it was a pretty significant drag. I would tell you a 6-figure plus drag on the financial budget from USBC. And so monetizing it makes sense. And if we could figure out a way with Flow that it was a win for both parties, we would be open to that conversation. But at this point in time, they had to get in, get to the PBA. It's a good question for Flow, but if they came knocking, we would absolutely listen to what they had to say. But honestly, we just couldn't figure it out the first time around.
So in relation to that, I guess the main issue that I have with watching Bowl TV currently is that it's a web browser.
Yeah.
It isn't exactly a friendly way to try and watch it on a TV. Is there a move to have some app-based Roku or iOS or something of that nature?
So people say that I'm the argumentative type, so I'm going to argue with you there, Stu. I think the web browser is great when you think of that instead of when the alternative is nothing. So I think the web browser is awesome. So I'm going to push. I'm kidding. Okay. The app's coming. It's coming soon. It would have been out already, but when COVID hit, we shut it down. The development because we kind of honestly didn't. We had no idea what we were doing. We started. You guys have any questions there? I'm happy to answer them. But we just complete unknown in so many levels. And so everything that was a spend was like an immediate, hey, stop. All capital projects, everything from an IT perspective, and that app was inside there. And so we have turned it back on, and it will be available early in 2021. And it's exciting for us. I think that the fans will like it more. Sounds like you'll like it more. But I agree with you 100%. If we could have, it would be there already if it wasn't for COVID. But at the same time, there's lots of things I could talk about related to that. But I appreciate the question.
All right, we'll take a question. You said you didn't want softball, so here we go.
Yeah.
What is the return to USBC by putting all these resources behind the women's professional bowling?
Love it. Best question I'm going to get tonight. That's not a softball. It's not a hardball. It's exactly what it is. 7-year-olds, girls have to have something to aspire to be. We're not going to drag an ROI off of it. We're not going to make a bunch of money. We're going to continue to invest in the future of bowling so that a 7-year-old girl can look at Shannon O'Keefe or Kelly Kulick or Liz Johnson and want to be her instead of Mia Hamm or a WNBA player. Not having a pro tour, men's or women's, would be a huge mistake for our sport. And so because it's not in the private space, it's our responsibility to deliver something like this. PWBA was privately held by John Summer, who I love to death. John probably lost a bowling center trying to finance the PWBA for a number of years there at the end. And he just did a great job. But this isn't a business model that really works financially, but 7 and 8, 9-year-old girls have to have something to aspire to be within our sport. And that's why we do it. Thanks for the question.
Okay. In relation to that, do you think that now that you've gone to a much longer schedule across the year, and we touched briefly on the how many of the athletes or players have jobs or outside of bowling, and that's obviously going to present more challenges to them, and tougher choices are going to have to be made. Do you think that maybe leads it to it being less of a break-even tour now, and you might need to change the model with the prize fund to
Could be.
reflect that?
Yep, could be. We'll see this year who shows up, right? Because we believe that we would have to lose some folks on the front end and the back end, and maybe they can't bowl a full schedule, and maybe they can. But by maintaining the 32 cashers, if we end up with 48, then we still have a fully functioning tour. If we end up with 60, the first event, will be limited to 56, 48 through the points list. And then a TQR, PTQ, I'm not sure what we're calling it these days. But through that, we're going to have to kind of follow it and pay attention. By leaving it at 10,000 for first and 1,100, for 32nd, we're still working on a model that supports the bottom. But we may need to, really look at it. Something else I've talked in a town hall about is more of what the PWBA had for a while, which was the exempt tour. And if you look at our tour the last couple of years, the elite events at the end of the year were modeled after that, but the players didn't really gravitate to that either. They didn't like the idea of not being able to bowl late in the summer if they were eligible. And some of the folks that bowl part-time were really against that. They couldn't get in the fields, but yes, from the financial model, we're going to have to pay attention, follow it. There's 400,000 more for them, while at the same time, can somebody, make a living out there? And I think the answer is probably no, unless you're, in those top 6 or 8 spots, which really, hasn't been that untrue of bowling for a long time. The manufacturer supports a big part of this too, because, without a manufacturer contract, as you guys know, with retainers, it's tough to be a professional bowler anyway.
No,
at times.
I completely agree. I just feel like when you have a 56-person field and, it just feels like you're paying people to bowl when 32 make it out of 56. Yeah,
and I don't disagree with you. And I think, if you listen or if you talk to some of the players, they've heard me say it before, and I don't think they like it. But we have a good relationship with the players. But I think, 24, pay them well, 28, pay them well, somewhere in that. And we still won't be paying them well. We won't be paying what they deserve. But at the same time,
I just feel like you've got to find a way in which you can compensate the people better for when they have a really good week.
Agreed.
And I completely agree that you've got to have it so that people can still make money on the week. And it's not just the 8 people who are making money. I understand that side of it. I just feel like 32 cashing out of 56 is like to me anyway, as a competitor, like if I finish 32nd in the 56-man field, I'm devastated. And now I'm going to get almost as much money as the person who comes 16th. That to me is a little bit of a problem for professional bowler. But so
as the ED of USBC, I have to be politically correct, so I can't argue with you. But that's why I'm wearing a T-shirt with a USBC logo and a hat, so that I can. The point that I would just lean on there is, some of this is development too, right? When I went out on tour as a tour rep, Mr. Barnes there had just gone out on tour, and Chris, help me, you were 28 or 9?
Yeah, 28
at that time, right? And so I was amazed at how long it took to learn to be a professional or competitively, to be a professional. There's a learning curve to this. And so this tour is kind of built for those people to come out, get a few checks, get their feet wet and learn, so that they don't just get run off before they might, aspire to be something bigger. But I wouldn't tell you one's right or wrong, Stu. We're just trying to make our way through it.
Okay. So with the revelation we had on the Beef and Barnzy show a couple of weeks ago with Coley Edison, she told us that PWBA players, or let me back that up a second, female players would be involved in the PBA league moving forward.
Okay.
Has there been any discussion over how this is going to work on your end? Is that something that you're for, against, whatever?
I don't know is the answer to that. We had a conversation with the PBA last week. We're continuing it. I'm not sure exactly what'll take place and when. I mean, we launched our schedule and pretty much said to them, "Hey, this is what we're doing," so that everybody could see it. I don't know how it'll fit within their schedule and those types of things. What they do, generally speaking, is in the best interest of the PBA. I would hope that it's a win for everybody if we continue to do it. And we would engage in discussions to support that. I think Chris can vouch for this. I'm a huge fan, believer, a big supporter of the PBA. Always have been. I just think it's important. I think there's a way for this to coexist, and we would just continue to work with the PBA if they're willing to work with us on making that go. In terms of having it be a win for everybody. We supported it massively through our PR channels. If you look at PWBA.com, and we did interviews with our shows and everything. So it was fun to watch. It's interesting, at the same time. I always struggle with it. The ladies are so successful and competitive in bowling against each other. It's just a tough environment. And I'd like to see them, be on a more of a level playing field where the guys and girls. People forget we were on our way to having a joint PBA PWBA show on Fox at Bowl Expo before COVID hit.
Yeah.
So I mean, we worked. Tom Clark and I spent time in trying to figure out how to pick those teams. I'm not doing it as a recreational kind of that piece. I think the tournament is important and how they qualify, but we're open to any conversation and hopefully we can have one about it this time.
Okay. Chris,
did I lose you guys?
No.
We were fascinated by your answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Coley said once, she said would be involved, and she said they would like to be involved. We weren't sure how much conversation was going on there, how much. I think the general idea is how much you want that to happen versus how much they want it to happen, and where the middle ground is. And so, but I think you answered most of that there.
Yeah, I think there's an open dialogue between the two groups, and we're going to discuss it and see what's best for everybody.
So what would be your comeback to people who are a little confused as to why the USBC is still putting the college bowling on TV, whereas the ladies tour is relegated to streaming only?
Yeah, believe it or not, the collegiate bowling is the longest running telecast that we have at the campus. And I tell a quick funny story. When I got to the campus in 2010, interesting enough, that time there was a little bit of a financial crunch, and the decision had just been made a few months prior to me arriving that TV was going to be eliminated across the platform. Queens, the whole thing was being eliminated. The reserves had been, kind of spent, and people, the goal was to rebuild the reserve structure instead of burning it. And at that time, we put the youth departments together. USBC and BPA decided to work together in the area of youth. And that happened in February of 2011. And that was the first year that collegiate wasn't going to be televised. And the two groups worked together basically to, come up with $80,000, and we televised it to continue that piece of business. And it was a really productive piece. I worked on it with Frank DeSocio and the guys in charge at that time. Lots of folks, both boards at USBC and BPAA were in support of it. And I don't even know, in my mind, I can't tell you how long that telecast has taken place, but it's the longest running one we have at the campus. It's financed by IBC Youth, which is a joint venture between USBC and BPAA. And so that's why that one's staying. The youth tournaments, we started televising a few years ago, as part of, design for junior gold and raising the profile. And so all of the other stuff at this point in time is on hold. It doesn't mean we're getting out of the TV business, because we're still going to work towards it. But at this point in time, we're getting out of paying for it. And I hope that makes sense. We hired a group, Wasserman, what would have been last fall. We signed a new agreement with CBS Sports Network, and we hired an agency, Wasserman, to really find us a partner and some subsidy money to go with it. And obviously, when COVID hit, that all those conversations dried up. So again, at a crossroads in the TV space, we're going to continue to look for a long-term partner that's willing to invest in bowling with us. And so you might see some of those shows turn back on, but at this point in time, collegiate's the only one that we're going to continue to fund.
We're getting a couple of questions. What is the current membership looking like? Is it looking like it's as bad as we should expect with COVID coming in for this coming fall?
Yeah, good question. The simple answer is we really have no idea. If you look at who's come in versus who comes in normally, and the thing that you first have to remember about the USBC membership piece is when you go into a bowling center and you fill out that card and you process your USBC membership, and then if you think about when you get your card in the mail, Chris, how long does it usually take?
It can be a minute.
Right. And so, I mean, in some cases, it's up to 90 days.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so if you think about that, and most of that is spent between the league fully forming a few weeks, right, to make sure all the teams are on the floor. And then it processes to the local, and then the local has all of these leagues in there to be processed. And that takes a little while. Then it gets to us, and then we run a nonprofit mailing, which is the back end 12 days. And so if you look at the members that are coming in, yeah, it looks like a significant decline. But we're still not there yet. We still don't usually know until the first week in December every year what the membership is going to look like. As an example, last year, the first week in December, we were down just barely 1% year over year. And this year it's going to be significantly more than that. But at this point in time, we're not looking to scare anybody. We are currently surveying bowlers who didn't come back. So we took the leagues that are in the system last year and the ones that have already come back this year. We took the empty bowlers that didn't come back, and we're asking them, hey, why didn't you come back? 80 some odd % of it is COVID. And then if they answer that way, we ask them, hey, when do you plan to come back? A, are you coming back after a vaccine comes back? B, when COVID's over? C, in January? But then you throw in California, right? Michigan's been down. California, Michigan, and New York are 1, 2, 3 in membership. And in a lot of cases, those leagues haven't even floored yet, especially in California. So you put all that together, it's going to be January or February before we even know what the number looks like. But I would tell you, 25 to 30% would be good at this point in time, and we hope to eat into it. When the rest of the league's floor, California comes back, and then what January and February looks like with more people onboarding, either after a vaccine or even with it. USBC is no different than your local restaurant, your local bowling center, your local movie theater. There's a lot of distress and concern in the world, and so this membership piece is just a part of that. But it's going to be February, March before we really know what this annual membership will look like.
Just one quick question sorry, Chris, about the TV. When you put the TV package up, and we're not getting into the bits and pieces of this, it's just more of a thing. Would you be looking for a TV partner for all of your products, or could you look for a partner for just the PWBA, for example?
Great question. When we started the conversations with Wasserman, and you can put any letters that you want into it, they were having conversations with everybody. But they were also having conversations with Amazon Prime and Netflix and Google and some of those other places too. And they're not looking for, 21 TV shows or anything like that. In some cases, they're just looking to get into the space and see what it looks like. And so the answer is we would be looking for a partner for really any of the individual pieces or the whole package. CBS Sports Network, as an example, has been a wonderful partner for us, but in some cases it's a challenge, right, because of who has it and who doesn't. But at the same time, they've been a good partner because they were willing to take the whole package. Historically, if you just go back a number of years, USBC Queens and Barnzy Chris used to be used to do the show, and it was on ESPN2, but they were one-offs, right? They weren't part of a package. And what we originally tried to do was put a package together that basically went from April, fast forward all the way through to the end of the summer. And CBS Sports was willing to work with us on that with some taped and a whole bunch of lives. But we're open to any partner that would want to have any conversation, and we're opening up dialogue with everybody.
So I'm learning that the YouTube watchers are more insistent on their questions than the Facebook watchers. So,
okay.
This is the third time they've asked, would the PWBA have their own YouTube channel, please?
It's something to consider. There's lots of things in there. You get most of that coverage through the Bowl TV channel. Longer term, will PWBA become its own entity, third party? It has its own website, if you will. So there's certainly merit to that. But at this point in time, we are who we are and what we are as a governing body. And so we try to, be efficient, share resources, and then obviously the revenue that comes with it. It's kind of about eyeballs too. When you think about it, we want to get as many eyes as we can. If PWBA starts up from fresh in some of those spaces, and it's why you see a lot of PWBA coverage on our USBC Facebook page, in addition to the PWBA page, so we can get more eyeballs on it.